Back at the Homestead Miami Speedway Trackside Live. It's our final Friday night party / television show.
It's the Bucketheads. They're here.
The Bucketheads. It's an annual tradition. They are here.
They love us and our show.
Hey, back with Brad Keselowski. Kurt Busch joins us in just a little while. But Brad, I want to ask you, I'm always interested. I mean, I asked Elliott Sadler this years ago and Jimmy Johnson, what is the biggest lesson that you've learned? And it could be on the track, off the track, but something that has surprised you.
The people end of the sport and how important it is, and I see that every day, especially dealing with Mr. Hendrick. You know, he understands that better than any other owner in the sport, for sure. And you know, it's a constant challenge. It's a moving target. You know, anytime you feel like you've got a great group, you know, then it always seems to get separated. So, you know, you never know what you got there. You know, you can go out and win races, and next thing you know, you have an entire different group. So, you know, the people end of the sport is the biggest challenge, and trying to keep everyone happy and pulling the same way.
You know, Brad, there's a lot of neat sponsors in our sport. Obviously, GoDaddy.com is going to be a great sponsor for you guys, but I've got to believe this Navy sponsorship that you've been a part of for 2 years, what a cool sponsor. The things you've got to do with them. In fact, I think the last off weekend you were all over Washington. You were at the Pentagon, meeting all kinds of neat people up there. Yeah,
the Navy was, you couldn't ask for more out of a sponsor, and you know, I'm so proud to represent all those sailors, 300,000, over 300,000, and you know, to have them on the nationwide car for the last year and a half has meant so much to me. I actually have family members that are in the Navy. So, you know, it's been a privilege, and hopefully, you know, in years to come, we can get back together with them.
You brought up a name a little while ago, Mr. Hendrick, and I want to ask you, how much of an honor is that as a kid to come into our sport here just a couple years and already? I know you've been doing a lot of testing for him at Kentucky and places like that, but to race a car for Mr. Hendrick, not only at Texas but also here. And do you have any plans for next year running any Cup races for him?
Well, yeah, that's actually GoDaddy.com is going to sponsor the Cup car for a few races next year. It looks like we're hoping to get a little closer on that, but we're very fortunate to be associated with them, and very fortunate to be driving for Mr. Hendrick. And you know, I couldn't ask for more. One of the best organizations, if not the best organization, with the best people. You know, and I'm just so fortunate and so lucky and thankful to drive for them. And I think about that all the time. You know, it's really cool when you fly on the plane and with the Hendrick folks and you see all of them and they're all pulling for you. It's a great feeling. It really is.
You mentioned the people within the organization. I've got to ask you about Tony Eury Sr. I mean, he raised Dale Jr. and now, as when I talk to him every now and then, he said, these kids, you know, these young kids are. Basically, he's raising you. What's it like having the relationship with him? Because, again, he's been around for so long. He's seen so much. What's it like?
Well, one of the great things about Tony Eury Sr. is he's just like my family. I mean, he's just like my dad, just like my uncle. So, you know, I know how it is. I know exactly what we go through there. And, you know, my dad and my uncle both have the same attitude towards life and racing. And, you know, so it's just like being home every week. It's like being with your family.
You know, I went to your website just to try to learn a bit more about Brad Keselowski, and I was pretty intrigued with a driver that inspires you the most. It wasn't Dale Jr., it wasn't even one of the Hendrick drivers. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Well, Kevin Harvick.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really impressed with everything he's done, and I'm trying to, in a way, mimic him, you know, and the things that he's done on the ownership role, you know, because growing up with my family, which owned race teams, you know, I always grew up thinking, you know, I'd like to do this or I'd like to do that, or it's an eye-opening experience because I've gotten into the ownership role with my own truck, the 19 truck I ran last week at Phoenix, and hopefully we'll get to run some more next year. I'm working on some things for that. But it's an eye-opening experience because running with my family and working on their team, you always thought, well, how come they don't do this or how come they don't do that? Well, then when I started my own team, like, oh, I see, you know. And so I see Kevin Harvick and the things he's been able to do where he started his own team, is able to be successful with it. He's won championships, winning races with it, and I just really admire that. That means a lot to me. And then obviously the things he's done on the racetrack are pretty cool too.
Yeah. Well, you can't admire your person you live with, your roommate.
This is true.
You know, tell everybody at home who you live with, and is there any curfew? Or
do you pay him rent?
Yeah, do you pay him rent, or
I
who
do.
does the cleaning?
I do pay rent, but yeah, I do live on the property with Dale, and that's cool. You know, I've had a lot of fun with that. Eventually, I'll have to grow up, but I'm trying not to.
Why? No, you don't sleep as late as that man sleeps. I know you get up a lot earlier.
No, I do get up a lot earlier. Yeah, I will say that.
What do you play in the band? I know they play in the band.
I'm an observer. I watch the band. Yeah, I clap.
You're the manager.
Good job. Josh Snyder, who Elliott Sadler knows is the drummer, and I kind of back him up. Words of encouragement.
Well, you got your first win earlier this season. In all race car drivers, that's a special feeling. But then to get that second one, as you got later in the season, doesn't that kind of vindicate where you say, hey, you know what, I wasn't a one-hit wonder?
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel about it. Winning Bristol and Nashville were two different feelings. You know, Nashville was kind of like a relief, like, yes, I can do this. Where Bristol was like, you know what, I belong here, and I can run with the Cup guys. It was a conjunction event. And Bristol, man, that's a cool racetrack.
What had to be neat about Bristol, Dale Jr. was there. I'm assuming he
and
was
Dale
not
was
in
not at
Nashville.
Yes, exactly. So that was cool, too. Just two completely different fields, but, you know, 2 days that I will never forget. Hopefully we can do that a little bit more next year.
Well, you're a very nice young guy. We appreciate you coming by. And Larry's right. It was easier to get juniors. So next year, we want
Next year sometime we'll get
early, we hope. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, guys.